Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly stock market show. We have a ton of more dark pools coming in, as well as the jam pack drop data is coming next week. So the question is, can the bears actually follow through? So we'll take a look at data real quick, as well as we'll come back to the price actions for QQ and S&P 500 and Mag 7s right after the data. All right, so let's start with all the sectors. So you can see energy is getting the rotation, which is not good for the market, but at the moment there is no real clear downtrends at the moment in the market. So nothing to worry about. You can see even XLK is pretty much flat. So for any kind of downside in the market, you need XLK to really drop to get those big drops. XLK is pretty much 30% of the S&P 500. So you can see if you just put the weightings, click the weightings here, right? And you can see Nvidia alone is already 14% in XLK. So if these guys Mag 7s don't really drop, right, market's not gonna drop that much. All right, let's take a look at dark pools. So we got more dark pool coming in as well this week on IVV, which is a derivative of the S&P 500. Some couple here as well on the 25th. We are trading slightly just on it, right? We came back, bounced back above end of the day, closed right around this level. Like I said, dark pools can overshoot, just like it did with the Mag 7, right? This number 3 print, we overshoot it once for a couple of months, came back tested many months, then rollover. And we had the number 1 largest print last week. We talked about this one last week, saying it could resolve to some downside. And this we got a little bit more on IWM as well, a whole bunch of prints over here. So be careful out there. Even though we do get a ton of dark pool, price action is really not that bearish, to be honest, right? So take a look at that in a sec and see if the bears are going to follow through. And if you're in green index, really not helping us much if we smack that right in the middle, 53. AI is NVIDIA, right? We talked about this while the market's going up. So markets are ripping higher over the last couple of weeks, right? People are very bearish, thinking this is going to roll over. And that just exacerbated the upside because shorts have to keep covering, right? And so we got that flip finally last week, and this week even a little bit more, right? People were less bearish, hence probably the small pullback that we got. So still, we'll see if next week comes in. If let's say everybody starts flipping bullish, right? And this goes up to the mid 40s, and this ends up being low 30s, then that could potentially mark a temporary top. Earnings, nothing really. Just Nike, me, if you guys are in it. It's a more popular one. So jobs data, right? Jam-packed jobs data next week. All of these can move the market. Market is a little bit more sensitive now to job data after that. So, after the weak numbers we had last month. And so if these start coming in weaker, right, rolling over, all that kind of stuff, then markets may resolve to the downside, especially if it's a little bit further away from the forecast. Usually if it comes in line with forecast, market don't really move that much. Usually it moves to the upside if it comes into forecast, because that just means there's no more uncertainty. That's why it usually moves to the upside. But if it comes in away from the forecast to the downside, then there could be some more downside. All right, let's take a look at the charts. So technical wise, really no red flags. We had like 3 down days, but it was pretty much a little blip, right? It might have felt like big for you guys, but 0.66, 0.35, 0.43, that's like really nothing. Right, we dropped bigger here in like 2 days, right? This was like 4%. We had 2.3%. So bears don't really have that much space to work with. They either have to defend pretty much right here for that lower high and lower low to confirm daily downtrends and get some kind of follow through. Otherwise, bulls might just try again for an all-time high. And because, yeah, so this whole time while the market was dropping, semiconductor was pretty much barely even dropping. Every day I was looking at it. All right. Q was down 0.35%. SMH was like flat. And then you see like SMH bouncing into the end of the day and they're green, all that kind of stuff. So if you don't have the semiconductor sector, rolling over with the Qs and the MX7s, market's not really going to go down that much either. So make sure to have SMH on you guys' charts. So what I want to see here is at least break this pivot, right? This was the last pivot, higher low, set by the bulls. And if they can't even break here, uptrend is still intact, and we're not breaking down any of the structures, right? This is a back test of this high, and then bounce. So bear is really not going anywhere if you can't even break this pivot, which is at 583. If we do break that pivot next week, and this is the lower high set, which so far is not looking like it, we close the high of day, and we break this pivot, then we are in a daily downtrend. Then we can start looking for more potential downsides and zoom out to weekly charts and monthly charts for potential longer term picture consolidation. But at the moment, well, we haven't started yet, right? Obviously, we're going to get monthly consolidation. It's going to happen inevitably, but we don't know if it's going to come now, next week, or one more leg up, right? Let's say you're like, okay, this is way too extended. I'm going to short right here, and just hold for a long time. What if we make one more leg up, right? Like that, another like 5%, right? Are you able to hold through that? Or, right, you got to ask yourself. Or we go up 5%, then we roll over and consolidate on that monthly consolidation, and then maybe chop around here, something like that. What if we fly here and next, we go up higher? So currently, no monthly consolidation yet. Obviously, we still need. That's why I said we need some kind of daily downturn first before we zoom out to longer term pictures to see if we're going to get bigger pullbacks. But at the moment, no signs of that yet. If bears can't even break below 583, honestly, there is no bears in the market at the moment. There was just a tiny blip. That being said, right, a lot of dark pools, plus, we're pretty extended. So we'll see into October, which is a weak month. And so we may see potential, maybe something like sideways, if it's going to be a weak month. All right, so a spot here. All right, similar idea. No signs of huge red flags either, right? We had 3 red days, and then one day it felt like we pretty much bounced back all of it already, even though it was like a tiny bounce. Right? Yeah. So it's like if we get a 1%, right, day on green day on the SPY, and then we're back to all-time highs. So it's really not that bearish at the moment. Yeah, we only dropped like 2%. So longer the picture, we are still just grinding up slowly in this channel, right? Right, bounce, 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 bounce. Sorry, reject, 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 reject. Bounce, 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 bounce. So if this does roll over, right, we need to at least bare minimum break this channel, which is also confluence right around this pivot low as well. So if we break that pivot low plus this channel, then we'll likely come down to 641 to test this sideways structure. If bears can break through this structure, then we may start to zoom out to potential weekly, monthly charts for more downside. Right? Because if bulls are just up, build a structure, up, build a structure, up, build another structure, consolidate, build another structure, build another structure, right? Then there's no signs of red flags. The only time is when bears can break below a structure and make that structure act as supply, overhead supply, and then reject from there. Then we'll see some kind of downtrend, more follow through. For now, we haven't had that in the last 9 months. But that being said, be a little bit cautious with all those dark pools coming in, as well as October, just a weaker month overall. And let's see if those job numbers, continue to weaken, all that kind of stuff. Be cautious out there of the economy. If it does continue to weaken, then maybe that's one of the reasons the market would consolidate a little bit more than usual. All right, so look at the MX7s to give us more clues. If the Qs are going to weaken more or not, because these are the biggest weightings overall in the markets. All right, so we talked about Meta last week, saying this could be potential tightening range. Go up, go down, go up, go down, right? Hasn't really cracked any of the pivots, higher lows, lower highs. So if it bounces from here, right, it could potentially continue to tighten them a little bit more. For bears, you want to break the prior pivots. And for bulls, you want to break these prior pivots as well, right? If it bounces back up, rejects from this again, makes another lower high, then it's probably going to continue to tighten up. But if it breaks above it, hits new all-time highs, then nowhere flex. For bears, if you break down and break through this pivot, this 735 pivot, then that's a bear break of this potential tightening range. Then we may come down to test the 700s if we can break this 735. For bulls, if you guys can break about 790, right, we're looking back to all-time highs, $800 psychological level. Yeah. That's just a little bit cluster here, right underneath this all-time high structure. No signs of red flags really at the moment, but I wouldn't be adding here for like a hold, like a long-term precision or a swing trade or a precision trade. Day trade, you can add whatever you want. Day trade, if you have a clear risk, clear targets, clear stop, right? But we are just grinding higher every day, slightly, right? Up and down is like a whipsaw here. Wouldn't be surprised once we resolve through this area, clear support around this 414 area, and clear resistance right for 42 here, which is just this shy of this structure, right? This 440 area, pretty much resistance. You can see prior resistance is where we rolled over here as well, which is the low of the structure. So if we do roll over here and start to confirm a daily downtrend, there's a chance that this could be a larger term picture tightening range. I mean, I know you bears are probably just looking at this and be like, oh, but no signs of that yet. It's just that being said, right? If we start to confirm a daily downtrend, then okay, the probability of this tightening up in longer term may start to shape up. Right? Obviously, the market needs to pull back with it as well. Right? Market can't just be Qs hitting new all-time highs, and Tesla is not gonna get much follow through. If this does confirm a daily downtrend and market starts hitting new all-time highs, it's not gonna get a lot of follow through. Right? So, and for bulls, right? This is the last structure. If you crack here and break above here, then that tiny range is out of the table. Then you're looking back to all-time highs, new all-time highs. If we zoom back, right, it would sound like this. This kind of tiny range, pretty much picture perfect tiny range, right? And then it finally broke bull here. So maybe it will form another one, but bears really need to form that downtrend first before any kind of convincing move here. All right, let's take a look at Amazon. So a little bit weaker than its peers. Yeah, so this is it broke a lot of its pivots, and this is what it would look like. This is what you want to see if you're a bear on the market. You want to see all of these. Right, this is the structure that I couldn't get over. Many resistance here, and then when we roll over, finally we started to crack these pivots now. These higher lows are all broken, and when we do bounce back here, let's say we bounce back to 223, you want to now see this entire structure act as supply, overhead supply. So on this entire way up, right, it never had overhead supply until, here it was barely any supply. This is pretty much a straight up move, right? And it pretty much just backtested it. But now it's actually built a sideways structure. So there is actually supply overhead now. So when we do bounce here, back test, let's say we even come up. I mean, we pretty much did already slightly at this 220, right? See how this 220 was prior support? Now it's slightly acting as resistance on Friday, even though we got a big bounce end of the day. Amazon didn't really get over its high, right? Q's closed right around here, around the high of higher than where it opened. Amazon shy of that a little bit. I mean, this is a tight 15-minute tiny range. So if they resolve to the upside, then it probably will break above that 220 resistance from this tiny range, super clear tiny range. And we probably will back test. I could test probably into the structure a little bit more, probably around 223 into this low. And if it does roll over, right? Let's say hit this green line at 223, which is prior support. Bounce, bounce. Only 2 bounces, but what I like is the prior resistance, right? Prior resistance, resistance, resistance acted as support. And then we roll over here. So if it comes up to here, 223, 224, which coincides with the green line and this supply overhead now, and then rolls over, then market will probably have more downside as well. That'll mean it's a weak bounce, and this is a downtrend already confirmed when we broke here. So this is what you want to see if you're over market bear, right? Downtrends confirming, right? See when this broke this pivot, you can see follow through from the bears, right? But overall, if it's just Amazon, market's not going to drop, right? That much. If Amazon's red, everyone else is green. Right? You can see Apple is up. I think Apple was up 3% the other day or something, right? Market's not going to drop. I think Thursday was it. Everyone was red. Apple was up 3%, and the market was only down like 0.5 or something. So yeah, so you still continue getting those inter rotations into the sectors, right? Between tech as well, between each other, right? Amazon slowing down a bit, Meta slowing down big, Apple's been getting bids all months. So that being said, Google is probably due for more pullbacks overall. All right, so let's see if Google bears can confirm a daily downtrend here. If we do confirm, we filled the gap on Thursday and bulls bought the dip, but Friday is a little bit weaker, right? You can see Google actually closed lower while the Qs closed above its opening high, right? So Qs pretty much closed around here, and Google is resolving its tightening range as well. Big up, big down, tighten range. So a lot of tightening ranges into Monday. So we'll see which way they all resolve, right? If they all go to the downside, right? Amazon resolves bear break, Google bear break, then it's probably going to be a red Monday. But at the moment, no huge red flags, like I said, for the market overall in terms of technical wise. But I wouldn't be blindly buying up here or anything like that. So Google did break its first pivot, right? This is the uptrend. The last pivot form was at 246, and higher high, slightly no follow through, and then rolled over. So bears have space here, enough space where if this is the lower high, and then we confirm the lower low and break 240, then this will be a daily downtrend confirm. When daily downtrend confirms, then we'll zoom out to the weekly charts, which is very due for a pullback. I wouldn't be surprised if we come back all the way to 223 or even 207 just to back test the prior highs. Yeah, come up to 212 is still a monthly bull flag. So it's not that really big of a deal, right? Just pulling back 38% of this entire move will come back to 212, which is pretty close to this 207 back test of prior highs. And that would be roughly a 13%. Yeah, 13% is pretty healthy pullback, let's say. Yeah, but once we confirm that daily downtrend, then we're going to start zooming out to see how this weekly consolidation is going to shape up overall. But yeah, Google, Amazon slightly weaker up here around these levels compared to its peers at the moment. And Microsoft going just completely sideways for the last month or two, probably just waiting for everyone else to see its peers, right? Which direction they want to go, and the overall market, and just consolidating. Right? It's made its move first, right? This was the first one to complete its move. Right? Made a 60% move, and then now just consolidating. So this is good for the bulls, pretty much. If you make a 60% move and you're consolidating near the highs, it's perfect for precision traders, swing traders, right? They're not scared. They're not like, oh, I need to sell my gains or anything like that. It's just consolidating at the highs. So if every Mag 7 does this near its highs and just goes completely sideways, and the market Q goes completely sideways, slight pullback, right? It may fuel up for another move into the end of the year. So we'll take it one day at a time. At the moment, yeah, no sign of reflex. Super clear support at 505, which bulls have been defending for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and pretty clear resistance as well around this 512. Right, triple top. Now it's like when it's below it, you can see it. It always sells into it a little bit. We don't, and if we do break above that, super clear resistance. This is what I call it when there's a supply overhead, right? You can see supply overhead resistance right here at 517. So if you want to short the market, you want to see supply overhead to short the market, right? You don't want to short when it's something like this. There's like no supply overhead. I mean, there is a little bit, right? A tiny bit. You try to short the lower high here, put your stop loss right above there, high of day. But it's if you want to nail these tops, you probably have to many tries. You have to stop out many times for it to work. But I wouldn't really, not really my kind of trade. All right, let's take a look at Apple. So Apple been holding up the market this week pretty much, right? You get these big updates. That being said, it is looking like there is pretty clear resistance at 257. Couldn't get over for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days already. So if we get above 257, this is just another bull flag, daily bull flag confirming, and it'll testing all-time highs. If we reject from here, then we're probably going to fill this gap at 245. So it needs to break down below these pivots though at 251. If we break down below 251, we're probably going to come down to 246. Yeah, and if we break above here, up 258, we're all-time highs. Longer term picture, I mean, Apple is known for its sideways range, right? How long this sideways range is. So if we do reject from 257, this may turn into a longer term picture, potential signing sideways range. I'm not gonna say this is gonna happen. We're gonna all the way down here or anything like that, but it's just a characteristic of certain stocks, what they like to do. I mean, we saw it pretty much here too, right? This poked above prior high, made new all-time highs, and then we ended up actually going all the way down. So maybe we'll do that. Poke above, hit new all-time highs, and then roll over, and then maybe form a sideways range here, right? This ping pong. But that being said, I know it looks cool if you're a bear going all the way down here, but at the moment, no signs of that yet. We're forming bull flags after bull flags, but we are seeing clear resistance right here at 257, right? 6 rejections already. but bears need to follow through with it. You can't just defend here and then not follow through on the downside and break any kind of thing at the moment. No pivots are broken, nothing. Yeah, so we'll see if they show up. And can delete this now. Now it's Nvidia. Huge, I mean, clear resistance, right? Everybody can see 184, but no signs of red flag, to be honest. Like, it's never really, there's no follow through on the downside, any kind of that. It's healthy consolidation at the moment. Clear resistance, if it breaks about 184, that's pretty much a weekly bull flag, right? Huge move up, tiny pullback into EMA 12 on the weekly chart. Bounce. If this breaks above here, it's just a weekly bull flag confirming. If we come back, break below here, we need to break below this 164 low on the weekly chart for more weekly downtrend confirm. For potential back test 153 if it does happen. But we need to break this 164 low. If 164 low doesn't break, bulls are in full control. Yeah, we're also making these higher lows, right? Every low is higher at the moment. So first step, break 173. Then we can look for this next pivot, 168, and then 164. For bulls, clear 184, and you guys are back to blue sky. So honestly, if you ask me what direction market is going to head, when Nvidia breaks 184 and clears blue sky and start breaking out, market's probably going to hit new all-time highs and pull the semiconductor sector, which has been really strong lately, right? Which hasn't really. Yeah, look at this. This didn't even pull back. Right, while the Q's going down, this just kind of chilled a little bit, flat, and then green day. So, yeah. So if semiconductor doesn't roll over, right? No, and which is obviously the biggest holding SMH in Nvidia, then market's not going to roll over. But if this guy starts to weaken, right, breaking all these pivots, and then more to the downside, break here, right, and then start to come back to test maybe the 150s, these little structure build normal way, okay, then maybe we'll form a temporary top, and then it'll be a weaker October. But for now, everyone is still holding pretty well. I would say the only weaker ones are Amazon and Meta at the moment. Everyone else is still pretty. I mean, he's not even that weak. I'm just like cherry picking. Yeah, by the moment, we'll have to see if more weakness shapes up, right? Obviously, it can change really fast in a week, right? Let's say if this breaks all these pivots, and then the other ones start to follow, right? Apple rejects 257 hard, come down all the way to 245 to fill the gap, right? That's another 3%, and then we decide to backtest 240, another 5.6%. Nvidia breaks this pivot, right? Obviously, market is going to drop like 3-4% if that does happen, which that could be very possible, right? It's very normal for it to happen. But we'll see. Yeah, and we'll see if Google can confirm a downtrend or not. Otherwise, we're probably just going to go back to 260. All right, let's go off for you guys. Feel free to comment if you guys have any questions, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe and support the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow for a commodities update. You guys trade commodities. I do these every week, both commodities and stocks. So feel free to subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of you guys' weekend.